Welcome to Sustainable Packaging with Cory Connors. Today, I've got a very special guest, my very good friend, Mr. Barry Salt, who is the National Director of Wine Packaging at Landsberg Aurora. How are you today, Barry?
Fantastic. How are you, Cory?
Good. Thank you so much. You and I have worked together for a long time, and you've been one of my mentors in packaging sustainably. And so I was really excited to have you on the show.
Thank you.
Can you tell us how you got into packaging and then sustainable packaging?
Well, I got off the commercial fishing boats, gosh, in the late, the early 90s. And so
Wow.
I started with, ironically, a packaging janitorial supply company called Fishman Supply. And they gave me the territory of Sonoma, Napa. So as I'm out there selling, I noticed that these wineries didn't have a good packaging source for their direct to consumer packaging. So I introduced that into Fishman Supply, and we started back then in the early 90s starting to supply wine shippers.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so that's how I started. That's when I started, and that's sort of when we started looking at sustainability because we were using styrofoam shippers, and we knew that that wasn't sustainable because they were selling toilet paper out there that were recycled with wood chips in it. So we knew that this was serious and this was going to be a subject for now into the future.
That's interesting how it went from the fishing industry to the wine industry. Do you feel like that was the transition?
Well, I was a restaurant guy, and I was going to go back into the restaurant business and realize that that's just not what I wanted to do.
Right.
There wasn't any money in it. There wasn't, it was fun. I enjoyed it, but I really needed to raise a family and I needed to make some money. So I got into sales and
Wow.
and then into this packaging sales.
Well, it's a great industry, and it's like most of us, once you get in, you don't get out, right?
Yes. Yes.
It's very specific.
Yeah.
So this is a question I'm asking all my guests, and I'm very interested to hear your thoughts on it. Can packaging actually be sustainable?
That's a really good question because I guess you really have to define sustainable. And I guess sustainable would be something that you could keep doing over and over again
Yeah.
without any adverse effects. So, so no, it will never be completely sustainable. But there are alternatives to actually making the packaging and using it over and over again. And that's really where I'm leaning towards is getting away from corrugated packaging, getting away from all this packaging and getting it to some kind of reusable shipper. Because we can't just keep making more cardboard, more pulp. I mean, everybody is maxed out right now, and inflation's hitting. So
Right.
it is just it is a time where we have to rethink of what we're doing and how we do it.
Yeah. Supply is short, demand is skyrocketing. You're absolutely right. We're
Yeah.
seeing it across all kinds of packaging.
Yeah. And I think we discussed before, the changes of the habits from going, to the grocery store and to the department store on the weekends and picking up your 20, 30 items. And now those 20, 30 items are now being shipped to you.
Yeah.
It is not sustainable. We cannot, everything we buy can't come through the mail. We don't have enough trucks. We don't have enough boxes. It's just really a crash course that we're on right now. And and I guess if you make the package so expensive you can't afford to buy it or ship it anymore, I guess that's where we're coming to. And then they'll start opening up brick and mortars again and people will start driving to the store. So I think that there is the end game here is not good. So we need to rethink what we're doing.
Yeah, I when you can't deliver each individual item to you in its own separate packaging, and that's not sustainable. I agree.
Yeah.
So, do we do some kind of a consolidated shipping? Do we do a retail store like you said? Is there a milkman system where picking it we're picking them up once a week or delivering, a whole scope of items. Very interesting idea. I agree.
Yeah, and I think we talked earlier about the returnable shipper,
Yeah.
right? And one of the problems with the returnable shipper is that everything goes out FedEx or UPS, and they don't come and pick up that package. So the package has to be returned USPS.
Right.
So that's what we're working on now is how expensive can we make this thing? How many times can it be used and become, a an actual positive, right?
Right.
So we're thinking, is it $20 and we get four out of it, then it's $5, which it costs about right now for a wine shipper, or do we get 20 out of it and really dig into that cost savings and that um, using less packaging, overall. So these are the kinds of things that we are working on as a company, but there's lots of I's to dot and T's to cross,
Right.
and to make the return on the investment for the wineries to be, palatable.
Very good point. It must be budget friendly as well as eco friendly to be an actual solution. Right.
Yeah, and I think that in this case it could be much less than what they're paying now.
Yeah.
And so I think that this is a way to actually make more money at the same time being more environmentally friendly and sustainable. And and that's a win-win because most of this sustainable packaging isn't a win-win. It's more expensive.
Good point.
It takes more of it because it's less safe. So
Mhm.
there's a ton of stuff around it that like we came up with the Vericool this year, which was the paper packaging around around the potato starch or corn starch kind of planks,
Yeah.
and that is a tremendous amount of work and labor making that, and the
Yeah.
paper is virgin paper. That this is not it's still way better than the styrofoam,
Yeah.
but it's not the final answer, right? It's a good interim.
Yeah.
It's like our biofoam is a good interim, but these aren't the end all questions. These are just some of the stopgap solutions that we're doing to appease the environmental direction that we're going as a
Right.
country and as a planet, really.
Yeah. It's no longer a question of do we need to do this. It's how fast can we do it.
Right.
And
Exactly. And so but people have to make some sacrifices. But what we got to do is that people will only pay X amount of dollars for their 2 bottles of wine.
all right.
And
Yeah.
and getting the shipping and the packaging is way more expensive than the wine that you even put inside it. So this is all upside down. So like I said, I think eventually, and maybe not in my lifetime, but in the next 5 or 10 years, whole thing's going to flip back to where it was, because that was the most logical and easiest and most efficient way to get your stuff from the store or from the manufacturer into your house.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And like you said, have a cart full of items, a literal cart, not an online cart.
Exactly.
that you push to your vehicle and you take them home.
Yeah.
Do you think the wine industry as a whole is pushing to be more sustainable?
Absolutely. I mean, these are essentially farmers, from that standpoint. Now, there's the big conglomerates, but the big conglomerates have also, really looked at paying even a little bit more for the sustainable packaging, right?
Yep.
Because they understand that if they can advertise that they do this, then their consumers are going to buy from them. So
Right.
I don't know if it's from a moral standpoint, but certainly it's from a standpoint that it's in every conversation that we have, right? So
Yeah.
the wineries and their customer base is pushing them to not send these styrofoam containers and to and all this thing. And the problem with it has in the years past is the wineries can't afford to sit on their wine all summer long anymore.
Right.
They used to be able to, and we had millions and millions of shipments here that were held for heat holds. And what I've been trying to do this last 10 years is trying to unstick those heat holds by creating some packaging to, to ship during the summer.
Like
And
more aggressive cooling
yeah, but
systems.
styrofoam's been the
Yeah.
only thing that we've come up with, and the one that actually works was so expensive and so big that people weren't buying it. So they would buy what we call the perception chipper,
Right.
which is the styrofoam that we have now that's probably 3/8 inch thick and will probably only last 24 hours.
Yeah.
But because it has an ice pack in it, it's styrofoam and it reaches the doorstep with cool to the touch, the customer is fine.
Right.
Which happens 90% of the time. 10% of the time it doesn't work, but they're willing to take that risk. So that's where we are right now is, how much money can you spend and still keep your profits and still keep that customer. So the holy grail is a very economical, cool pack shipper that's environmentally friendly, that you can biodegrade, recycle, or reuse.
Yeah, and maybe something similar to the very cool, but something that's easier, a little bit easier to set up, maybe.
Yeah, and I think if we go to a returnable shipper, it's not going to be a recyclable type material.
Yeah, more robust, right?
Yeah, we'll use a PE kind of product that you can just reuse over and over and over and over again, and that will far out. I think from a carbon footprint and a total carbon footprint, we will be well ahead of the curve.
And those are eventually recyclable as well, right?
Not really.
They technically.
Yeah. I mean, you can reuse that product, regrind it, and reuse it.
Right.
If it's recycled properly. And as we come out with our program, because we're really at the infancy of it, we'll figure that part out. What do we do with it when we're done with it? Where do we take it? How is it regrind, reused, which I know they can do at ACH or anyway, Atlas Foam. So well, but that's sort of, the 1,000-foot version of what we're looking at.
Yeah. So what do you think about shipping wine in kegs instead of glass bottles as a sustainable option?
Well, it's such a cool idea. So in Europe, and this is an article I read 15 years ago, you don't go in a lot of places in Europe, you don't go by the store and get bottles of wine, cases of wine. You have a keg that you put in the back of your pickup truck and you drive underneath to the winery, and they have these filling stations like a gas station.
Wow.
And they fill these kegs up and then you just drive it home.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So that's already
that's been going on for years. So there is a company here in Napa that sells kegs of wine. But it's more to restaurants and things like that, not to the homes.
right.
But in Europe, it's quite common to see a barrel in a person's living room full of wine.
That's awesome.
Right? So that's sort of how they do it. So if you're, really into good wine, get a barrel, put it in your house, pretty, it's constant temperature of 70 degrees or whatever. Don't age the wine.
Right.
And there you go. You got it. But I completely agree with that. It kind of, the marketing people may disagree with you, and all the people who make labels and bottles and all that. But you're absolutely right. If you're a wine drinker and you're going to drink wine every night, and you know a good wine, buy it by the barrel. Yeah.
And what like you said, what a cool thing to have in your house,
Yeah.
And especially if you host lots of events or gatherings. Yeah, I've seen those systems in restaurants fairly frequently where they have a keg and it comes out of a tap.
Right. Yeah.
Which
yep. So that is
like
that
beer.
is a new thing, and it's great for restaurants, but we still have that mentality where we want to see the bottle and smell the cork
Mhm.
and see the fancy label, and it's sort of a whole experience.
Yep.
So, if you're owning a restaurant or something like that, you've got to create that experience without them seeing that bottle somehow. And I'm not
Right.
sure how that works, whether it's on an iPad, where like a lot of these wine menus are now on an iPad, so you can click on it and it could give you a story. You could just
Yeah.
have Q code right there on your menu, and now it's telling the story. That way, they don't need to see the bottle and smell the cork and do all those types of things.
Even better, in my
Yeah.
opinion, than, labels are beautiful, like you said, and bottles are, even opening a bottle is an experience. But if the QR code could lead to a short video about the family and where the grapes were grown, and
Yeah, and I'm
uh,
starting to see that, even on people's bottles now and labels, these Q codes, and I think that that's probably, if they had iPads in these restaurants, and a lot of them are now, and they take orders on them and do all that type of
yeah,
thing, that you could actually interact and just go here, you click on this, and it gives you the story about the wine, and then off you go. But
great.
yeah,
I love that idea.
yeah, but any kind of idea you can think of to not to get away from the bottles and the screw caps and the good. I mean, being a buyer for one of these places got to be a nightmare, right? Because you've got the cork, the glass, the label, and production, and the picking of the grapes and the aging of the grapes. And everything has to come together all at the perfect time
Yeah.
to put that all together.
And what if you
Tremendous
harvest
amount of
a
work.
bumper crop and
Yeah,
you need extra this year all of a sudden? And
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, and glass, the shortage on glass is bizarre.
yeah,
People can't get glass, so they can't produce the wine, and so they can't sell the wine, and it's, yeah, our supply chain is choked
yeah,
amazingly, and we're doing the best we can, but
yeah.
we're not at a great fill rate, and neither is anybody else.
Right.
So I mean, these glass houses are, you know in the low sixes,
Yeah,
or 60% fill rates and things like that.
that's
It,
amazing.
yeah, it's just because they've allocated the glass to them that they used last year,
Right.
but now they've grown 10%, 15%. Well, the glass plants don't have that capacity to bring on an extra 10 or 15%.
Yep.
So everybody's born from Peter to pay Paul, and it's just very, very frustrated industry right now in that regard.
I see the same in the beer industry with cans. They're
Right.
frustrated. They can't get cans.
That's because the wine people are using them now.
That's what I was gonna say. Have you seen? Is that the new trend? Is
Yeah,
the
huge trend in 250 mLs, 355 mLs, and even the 375 mLs, which is like the Coke can, the traditional Coke can. They're even
oh
putting wine in those. So we were at an account the other day. I won't mention their name, but they had canning lines, Tetra Pak lines, and bag in a box lines, as well as
wow,
their regular wine lines.
Tetra Pak.
This is where it's going,
Wow.
right? So now they're actually, this is the first winery I saw put all that into one building.
Hmm.
But there's lots of co-packers around here in Napa that have the can fillers and that type of thing, but there's not enough of them, right? And like you said, there's not enough cans, and so it's
And
and that's
that.
the trend, is single serve, and
Yep.
which I think is awful. I just can't. It's the trend because that's what the consumer wants, but it's a bad trend,
Well,
right? Because
it's easier to put a 12-ounce can in your backpack when you're hiking. I think that's kind of the idea, right? Like,
yeah,
uh,
it's convenience. It's not the right thing to do.
it's not the experience that we spoke of before.
Right.
Right.
It's like you buy orange juice for the house, and you just go buy little 12-ounce bottles. You go buy 12 of those. I
Right.
mean, one of the things that we've done at the house is we love sparkling water. So we used to buy cases of this stuff.
Hmm.
So we bought one of those Airstreams or whatever they are.
Yeah.
And we get our water from Chester, right? It's all beautiful water, and we have got sparkling water, and we've saved just in our household probably a case a week,
Wow.
right? And
Amazing.
so you take that times 52 weeks. I mean, just us alone by just buying that SodaStream thing,
Yep.
save that amount of bottles.
I had another guest on the podcast that said SodaStream was the first to do sustainable packaging. And I thought, wait a second. And then you think about it, and you're exactly right. That's what he's talking about. What you're just saying, you're eliminating packaging that's unnecessary.
Yes.
Make it at home.
Yeah. That's why I think this keg thing's a great idea, or even just go fill up from a tank.
Yeah.
Go refill your bottles, right? I mean, it's just crazy what we do, because we just want to sit at home.
Right.
And no, it's let's get out there, people. Use your electric bike, whatever it takes. If you don't want to buy gas, then buy an electric car and do it that way. But,
yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
It could even be like a delivery service, like you used to get oil for your heat delivered to your house.
Right.
There could, Chateau d'Onsemaine could deliver the wine.
Imagine it like an ice cream truck going down the road with all these spouts on the side of it.
Yeah. Yes. Which vintage would you like today, sir?
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show, sir. What's the best way for us to get a hold of you?
You can get a hold of me at barry.salt@landsberg.com.
Email. All right.
And so it's Barry, Barry, and salt like pepper, SALT.
Perfect. Well, thank you again for being on the show. I'd like to thank our sponsor, Landsberg Aurora, for their support. And you and I both work there, so this works out really well. Yeah. And thanks again, Barry. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Cory, for doing this. I think you're doing the world a favor.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Cheers.
You too. Okay.